ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। So as you know, this is the second part of the series, 3 migratory states which every human being experiences every day. Last time we have discussed the waking state. So this is an inquiry into these 3 states. What is the aim of this inquiry? By proper inquiry into the threefold experiences, waking, dream and dreamless sleep, the individual self is recognized as the central principle of consciousness, unaffected by the varying objects of experience, external and internal. So the consciousness is experienced as separate from all these experiences. We are always experiencing consciousness because we are consciousness. But what is the problem here? The problem is that consciousness is getting mixed up with external and internal experiences. Internal means our happiness, joy, sorrow, and external, all these sense objects. So by inquiry, the consciousness is known to be separate, and that is freedom. That is the aim of spiritual life. So on examining these states, what do we find? That these states are cognized by one and the same cognizer, and we know that what is cognized can never be same as the cognizer. What I see can never be I. What I experience can never be I. So this is the aim. What is the significance of every human being experiencing these 3 states? This means that we, the embodied self, we daily dwell on these 3 different planes of consciousness. That is why we have 3 types of experiences. And the interesting part is each of these experiences contradict one another. The waking experience is counteracted by dream. An ordinary man may dream that he is a king. Then dream is counteracted by dreamless sleep. In dreamless sleep there is nothing, and also of course by the waking state. So all these 3 states counteract each other, and they are so different. That is why. So they are so different, this leads us to think that there are 3 entities who experience them, but it is not so. We have seen a person says, I am awake, I had dreamt, I was asleep. So this I persists in all these 3 experiences. This means that the experiencer is one and the same. And what we had seen last time, that these 3 experiences lead to giving us 3 different names in order to distinguish, understand which state we are in. So we have discussed this last time, but still I will just share that image. So we have seen last time that these 3 names are given so that we understand that the same self is experiencing these three states in order to distinguish these three experiences. So, in association with the physical body, the individual self is the experiencer of the waking state. So, when we say in association with the physical body, we should remember that at that time, of course, we are also the experiencer of causal body, subtle body, and the physical body. All the three. So, when we experience that state, that self is called Vishwa. Then, in dreams, the self recedes. The physical body becomes inactive. Then only the subtle body and causal body are active. Then the same self, which is the experience of the dream state, is called Tejas. Then it withdraws further. Even the subtle body is left behind, it is withdrawn. Then only the causal body or ignorance is left. Then the same self is called Pragya. Pragya is the experiencer of dreamless sleep. So all this we have seen. Now let us start today's discussion, that understanding the dream state. As we have seen last time, that in the dream state we are conscious only of internal objects. This we all know. Nothing externally is cognized because the organs are withdrawn into the mind. Without the organs, we cannot see any external object. Without the help of the eyes, we cannot see. Without the help of the ears, we cannot hear. Since the organs are withdrawn into the mind, we are not aware of any external object during the deep dream state. We experience only the internal objects. That is why it is called Anta Pragya. Pragya means knowledge. Anta means inside. Since we are only conscious of what is going on inside, it is called Anta Pragya. The individual is called Anta Pragya. He does not actually go out of the body in dream. We don't go out of the body. Although in the dream we may be traveling far and wide. In the dream I may go to India, I may go to Toronto, but actually I don't go out of the body at all. So in the waking state, so many things are present. We are hearing, we are seeing, but nothing of this is there in the dream state. Here, who holds the fort? Only the mind. So it is primarily through the agency of the mind that the self experiences the dream objects. Now, let us go into a detailed analysis. It is a very interesting analysis. It is mentioned in the Upanishads and analyzed absolutely threadbare by the great Shankaracharya. So, we will discuss what two Upanishads say about dreams. First is the Prashna Upanishad and the second is the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. And Shankaracharya has commented on both of these. So we have his wonderful explanations. So what does the Prashna Upanishad say? The original verse I will first quote. In Sanskrit, it says, Atra esha deva swapne mahimanam anubhavati yad drishtam anupashyati shrutam evartham anushrunoti desha dig antaraschaiva pratyanubhutam punah pratyanubhavati drishtam cha shrutam cha anubhutam cha anubhutam cha sat cha asat cha sarvam pashyati. So what does it say? Atra esha swapne, Swapne means in the dream state, Deva. Deva means the self. Mahimanam anubhavati experiences greatness. We will see what the term greatness means. Yat drishtam anupashyati means he sees again what has been seen already. Shrutam anushrunoti means he hears what he has heard already. Desha dig antaraischa pratyanubhutam. Pratyanubhutam means experienced. So, Desha and Dik in different places and directions, what he has experienced before, he experiences again. What he has seen before, he sees again. And it says next, Drishtam cha adrishtam. What he has seen and what he has not seen, he sees. What he has not seen means what? How can we experience something which we have never seen before in dreams? It is not possible. We cannot see in dreams what we have not experienced in the waking state. So what does the Upanishad say? Drishtam cha adrishtam means he experiences what he has seen and not seen. So the explanation is he may not have seen in this life, but he has seen in the previous life. Same for others. Shrutam, ashrutam. What he has heard and what he has not heard. If he has not heard in this life, he has heard it in the previous life. Anubhutam cha ananubhutam. What he has experienced and not experienced. Means not experienced means what? He has not experienced in this life. But he must have experienced in some other life. Otherwise, the dreams cannot contain that object. And satya asatya. What is true and what is not true. What is not true means something like a mirage. So when we see a mirage, it is not true. But we can again see the mirage in a dream. Sarvam pashyati, the self sees everything. So this is the verse. The translation is, the whole translation, in the dream state, this deity, the self, experiences greatness. He sees again what has been seen, he hears again what has been heard, he experiences again and again what has been experienced in different places and directions. What has been seen and not seen, what has been heard and not heard, what has been experienced and not experienced, what is real and what is not real. He perceives all. This is the verse. So, what we have already experienced, only that can be experienced in dream state, not something altogether new. So if we experience something very strange which we think which we have never seen, we must have seen that thing in our earlier births. So Shankaracharya explaining this, he says, in this state of dream, when the senses, such as that of seeing, hearing, etc., cease to function. We cannot see anything outside in dreams. We cannot hear a person maybe making a great noise, but we are actually, if we are dreaming, we cannot hear that. So the senses are all withdrawn into the mind. That is what Shankaracharya says. They cease to function. But another thing keeps awake. What? He says, the vital forces counting from prana. Prana means our life breath, so to say. That is functioning, otherwise you would die. So in dreams, although the senses are not there, but the prana continues to function. They keep awake for the maintenance of the body. So in this intermediate state between waking and deep sleep, dream is intermediate. Waking, then we go to sleep, we start dreaming, then we go to deep sleep before entering into deep sleep. This deity that has withdrawn into itself all the organs, such as the ear, eyes, etc., like the rays of the setting sun, Anubhavati experiences greatness, Mahimanam. So, what does this mean that we experience greatness? Explaining this, he says, greatness is, and the wonderful thing is, in dreams, we become the object as well as one who is experiencing the object. That is the wonderful phenomenon. See, now, suppose I go and eat something. I am different. What I eat is different. I am the experiencer. What I eat or hear is the thing which is experienced. But in dreams, what happens? In dream, if I go and eat something, is there anything which I am actually eating? Is there any object present? There is no object present. So I am both in dreams. I am both one who is eating and one the thing which is being eaten. I am both one who is hearing and what is being heard. I am both the experiencer and what is being experienced. In the dream, I may see that I am visiting the Niagara Falls and all that. Is Niagara Falls present there? No. From where has Niagara Falls come? It is the mind. It is me only. So when I see the Niagara Falls in a dream, I am both the Niagara Falls and also the one who is seeing. This is the wonderful thing. So when I was reading that, Advaita philosophy, they say that the whole, at a very high growth of spiritual experience, the person finds that the whole mind, the whole world exists in his mind. So I thought, how can that be? We can feel this, that. How can everything be mind? Then the one who was explaining, he said, it is difficult to believe, but what happens in a dream? Everything is in the mind. See the marvelous thing which is happening. It's absolutely stunning. When I read that, I was simply shocked. See, this is happening every day. We are creating our whole world in the mind, in dreams. So why can't the same be true in the waking state? In the dreams, what we find the dream to be false when we wake up. It is a usual experience. But the problem is we don't know anything other than the waking state. We don't know anything higher. That is why we assume that the waking state is absolutely real. But it is not so. So this is what the Prashna Upanishad says. But again I will remind you, because it is very easy to get confused. Please remember what? Nahi kshetragya paramarthata swatah swapiti jagarti va. What? Remember what? That nahi. It is not that the kshetragya means the self. Actually, paramarthata swapiti jagarti va is either dreaming or is awake. It is never, the self never dreams, never goes to sleep. Then what are these three states about this waking, dream and deep sleep? These are caused by the limiting adjunct of the mind. We identify ourselves with the mind. So when the mind is Vishwa, when it is identifying itself with all the three bodies, then we think we are awake. When the mind withdraws the organs into itself, only the subtle body is active, we think we are dreaming. When the mind goes further, we think we are in deep sleep. The self never undergoes any change whatsoever. The self is always the witness. It can never participate in any action. But the problem is the self is identifying itself with the mind. The self is thinking it is the mind. So when the states of the mind change, the self also thinks, I am awake now, I am dreaming now, I am in deep sleep now. This should always be remembered. That क्षेत्रज्ञ परमार्थत नहीं क्षेत्रज्ञ परमार्थत स्वतः स्वपिति जागृति वा. The self neither is awake nor it dreams nor it is in deep sleep. It is always the witness. So its wakefulness and dream and deep sleep etc. are caused by the limiting adjunct of the mind. What is this limiting adjunct? The technical word of this is upadhi. Please remember this word. This upadhi will come again and again with Vedanta. So, to explain upadhi, a crystal is there, colorless. We know that crystals are colorless. We see that the crystal is appearing red. Crystal has become red. How can it happen? Then we see that either a red light is being thrown upon it or there is a red flower near it, something like that. So the crystal is colorless always, but it is appearing to be red. So something external is, because of something external, the crystal is appearing to be something which it is not. That something external is called the upadhi. So here, because of the identification with the mind, the self is appearing as what it is not. So the mind is the upadhi in the dream state. In the waking state, other upadhis come, like this body, organs, hand, feet, etc. So we should remember this. So in dreams, what happens? The sense organs are merged in the mind. But the mind is still active in dreams because it is in the mind all this play is going on. So the mind persists in dreams together with all the sanskaras, which are called the impressions. So in dreams, what happens? These sanskaras, these impressions are activated. They were sleeping, but they are activated now. In the waking state, many sanskaras are sleeping. We are not aware of many things which we have seen maybe 20 years ago, maybe in previous life. We are not aware now. But in dreams, even those can be awakened. What is the cause? The cause is ignorance, of course, first of all. The self is ignorant, that's why it thinks it dreams. And its past actions and desire. So, a very poor man, he desires that I should become a king. Now, there is no hope of satisfying that desire in this life, suppose. So, what happens? In the dream, he may think he has become a king. Because the mind is hankering for that thing. So, mind creates its own kingdom. He becomes a king in a dream or a very rich person in a dream. So these past impressions, sanskaras, are activated by ignorance, ajnana, desire, kama, and past actions, which is karma. This is the cycle. Ajnana, kamana, karma. So, the self, which is actually completely disassociated from all these things, self is always free. It is disassociated entirely from the group of cause and effect and karma, etc. Because it is ignorant, it identifies itself with the mental impressions created by our past actions. That is the problem. So, because of ignorance comes desire. These desires activate the sanskaras. So, the self, suppose a man is very hungry, he will sleep in dreams, he thinks he has eaten nicely. So, many things like that happen. We all know, we all dream. Now, again, going into a little more detail into this verse, let us see what Shankaracharya says about the rest of this verse, that how the mind experiences its diverse manifestations in dreams. Here there is only the mind, mind you. The mind is the experiencer. The mind is experiencing, self is experiencing. But the self is identified with the mind. So we can also say the mind is experiencing. So being under the influence of the impressions of any object, be it a friend or a son or a daughter, which was drishtam purvam, was seen earlier, it pashyati, sees again, through ignorance, it sees those visions again. Suppose my dear friend has died. I know he will never come back again. In dreams, because I love him so much, I recreate him. I think he has come. So it pashyati. Pashyati means sees. Sees what? Sees through ignorance, thinks through ignorance, that his those objects which were dear to him, impressions of son, friends, daughter, etc., he is again seeing. But he can never see them again actually. Similarly, Shrutam Artham, whatever was heard, Anushrinoti, it seems to hear again. Pratyanubhutam, what was experienced earlier, either in this place or in some other place, it experiences again. Okay. Puna puna. Puna puna means time and again. We dream every day. We see those things again and again. Similarly, for what was not seen, what was not heard, what was not experienced in this birth. So that was either, if not in this birth, it was seen and heard in the earlier birth. To be brief, the self, pashyati, sees sarvam, everything. By what? Becoming everything. The mind sees by becoming those things. When I see my friend in a dream, there is no friend. My mind becomes the friend. My minds become me, I, and also the friend. See, this is the absolutely wonderful thing which happens. So, since dream objects are but transformations of the mental impressions, the self, identified with the mind, turns into the dream objects, so to say. So to say, the self never changes, but the self is identifying itself with the mind. So when the mind changes, the self is also said to change. And we all know that when we see dreams, we become completely absorbed in the dream. We don't miss the waking experience at all. In the dreams, we don't miss what we had seen in the waking state because it is so real to us. The dream is so real to us. So actually, we nullify it. We nullify the waking state. Means what? We become completely oblivious of the waking state. We're in a different world. So, from the tangible physical universe, we daily migrate to the dream world. And when we are dreaming, that is the only thing which exists for us. See the wonder. And unfortunately, what we see in dreams is not true. We may become a king, we may become Justin Trudeau or anybody, but when we are awake, we find that we are the same person. So this is now explained. Now let us see another verse from the Upanishads. It says this is the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. So it compares, a beautiful imagery is given that Sa Yatha Maharaja king Janapadan Grihitva स्वे जनपदे यथा कामं परिवर्तेत एवमेष एतत् प्राणान् गृहीत्वा स्वे शरीरे यथा कामं परिवर्तते. So beautiful example is given. When the self moves about in dream, these are his achievements. What is the meaning of achievement? We will see. So here it is said, when the self moves about in the dream state, these are his achievements. What? Then he becomes an emperor, as it were, a noble Brahmana, as it were. He attains a high state or a low state, as it were. Iva, in Sanskrit, the word iva means as it were, not really. Even as an emperor, taking his own retinue of subjects, moves about in his territory as he pleases. Emperor is the king. He will take his praja, Raja will take his praja, means retinue, and he will move about in his kingdom as he pleases because he is the king. Similarly, the self, who does the self take? Taking the organs, moves about as he pleases in his own body. So it is here, originally is pranan grihitva, organs are withdrawn, but actually it is the prana. Prana is still active. So with the help of that, the self moves about in his own territory. Like a king moves in his own kingdom. This is the achievement of the self. So what does achievement mean here? Achievement does not mean that some great achievement. It means his past karma, the results of his past karma, karma phala. So becomes a king as it were, not really. So the kingship, etc., is absolutely false because they are contradicted in the waking state. When we wake up, we find that unfortunately we are not kings, we are the same ordinary people. So, as an emperor taking his citizens, his retinue, and others who are his ministers, moves about as he pleases in his own territory, which is acquired through conquest, etc., so does the individual self taking the organs. Taking the organs here means what? Withdrawing the organs. Only the prana is active. All the organs are withdrawn. So taking the organ means withdrawing the organs. Moves about as it pleases in its own body, not outside. We don't go outside in dreams. So this means what? This means it experiences impressions corresponding to things previously perceived. These are revived by its own desires and karma phala, results of its actions. Therefore, in dreams, things that never existed and may never exist, these are falsely superimposed as being a part of the self. Kingship is completely false in dream. But we think I have become a king. Means what? It is being falsely superimposed on the self. Similarly, the waking state also. I think I am hungry. What? What are we superimposing? We are superimposing the body upon the self. The self can never be the body. So here also, these things which never exist are being superimposed as being a part of the self. And the same thing happens in the waking state also. Another verse which beautifully explains how the dream state is completely false. This is a verse which is very often quoted. Very, very often you will see in the Brihadaranyaka, beautiful verse. It says, न तत्र रथा न रथ योगा न पंथानो भवति अथ रथान रथ योगान पथ सृजते creates न तत्र आनंदा मुदः प्रमुदो भवति अथ आनंदान मुदः प्रमुद सृजते creates न तत्र वेशांतः पुष्करिण्य स्रवन्त्यो भवति अत्र वेशांतान पुष्करिणी स्रवंती सृजते creates सही karta. Karta means the agent. The self is the only agent here because there are no organs. So beautiful verse. Na tatra ratha na ratha yoga na panthano bhavati. Ratha means chariot. There are no chariots. Na ratha yoga. There are no animals which are yoked to the chariots. Na panthano. There are no roads. Patha means the roads. But the self creates the chariots, animals and roads. Na tatra ananda mudah pramudo bhavati. But srijate. There are no pleasures, joys and delights. Actually, there is nothing. In the dreams, I may be eating a chocolate ice cream, but there is nothing there. So it creates. There are no pools, tanks or rivers there, but he creates all these. For he is the agent. Sa he karta. So Shankaracharya explains this. There are no objects such as chariots there in dreams, nor there are animals to be yoked to them, such as horses, nor roads for the chariots. But he himself creates all these. Now, how does he create? Now, chariots were made of wood, so maybe. So he says, how does he create? Because there are no trees. So he says, what are the means of all these objects? How are they created? This is the reply. What? The reply is that the mind itself creates from its own impressions. And the exact process will be given in another verse. So, these experiences are transformed into the impressions of chariots, etc. being stimulated by our previous karma, which is the cause of their perception. So it is said, he creates the chariots. Really, in dream sleep, there are neither activities of the organs nor sun, moon, no light. In dream, where is the sun and the moon? Actually, there is no sun and the moon because our organs are not there. Nor objects such as chariots to be illumined by them. In the waking state, all these are there. This house is there, sun is shining. So the sun illuminates the house. Both are there. In dreams, there is nothing, neither the house nor the sun. So only the impressions are visible, and they have actually no existence apart from the modifications of the mind, which is stimulated by our previous karma. There, what is there? In dreams, then, if nothing is there except the mind, what is there? It is said, the light with constant vision that witnesses them. That light, there is only one light in dreams. There is no sun, no moon, no halogen, no bulbs. There is only one light. The light which witnesses all these phenomena. The light of the self. Atma's Jyoti, the light of the self. So in the waking state, what happens? This light of the self is mixed up in many more things. It is mixed up in the things we see, what we experienced, what the work we are doing. But in dreams, the organs are withdrawn. So the self, Shankaracharya says, like a sword which is separated from its sheath, is perfectly isolated. The only light which exists in dreams is the light of the self. And the self is the only agent. Sahi karta. Now what does this mean? Those who have read even a little of Vedanta, they will say that self is the karta, means if you say self is the doer, but we have heard that the self doesn't do anything. Self is only the witness. Yes. So here when it says self is the agent of all these experiences, it is said in a figurative way. The self's agency in dream consists in merely being the cause of the work that generates the modifications of the mind, which is representing those impressions. Let me explain. So we have seen that in dreams, these impressions are revived. What we have seen, what we have heard, all the past karma is the cause of reviving those impressions. Okay. So what are the cause of that karma? The cause is the self. Without the light of the self, there can be no karma possible. Without the self standing behind, there can be no life itself, there can be no consciousness itself. So how can there be karma? So although the self doesn't act, but still it is the cause of all actions. So it is also the cause of the actions which are the cause of our dreams. Cause of the experiences which are being seen again in our dream. So direct activity, any kind of activity, is absolutely impossible in dream state. Our hands and legs don't work at all. So how can there be activity? But in the waking state, when hands and feet are working, the body and the organs in the waking state, illumined by the light of the self, perform work. Okay? These works which we perform in the waking state, they produce the modifications of the mind, like the chariot, the charioteer, etc., which is seen in the dream again. So I become a charioteer in the waking state. The cause of my action is what? The cause is the self. Because if there is no self, I cannot act. Okay? So the self causes me to act in the waking state. Those actions, those experiences are the cause of the dream state also. If I don't experience anything in the waking state, how can I see those things in a dream state? Is it not? So, what we see and experience in the waking state are the cause of the dream state, and we can only do something or experience something in the waking state if the self is behind us. So, the self is the cause of everything we do in the waking state, and therefore is also the cause of our dream experiences. That is why it is said, Sahi Karta, he is the agent. This has been stated in one of the Upanishads also. So, directly, strictly speaking, the self does not act. The light of the self has no direct agency. Just because of the presence of the self, because of the illumination which is provided by the self, all this happens. So the light of the self, which is pure intelligence, illumines the body and organs through the mind. The first thing is the mind. The self is closest to the mind. Through the mind comes the impulses. Then our body and organs start acting. So the light of the self, which is pure intelligence, illumines the body and organs through the mind, and then they perform their functions with the help of that illumination. So, Sahi Karta, the self is the only agent, means in a only figurative sense, not actually. His agency is just in giving illumination, the power, so to say. That makes all the actions possible in the waking state. And those actions in the waking state, those experiences of the waking state cause dreams. That is why it is said the self is also the cause of the dreams. Because without the self, there will be no activity, no experience in the waking state. Without any activity in the waking state, how can there be dreams? It is impossible. So this is beautiful, how beautifully it is mentioned in the Upanishads, and how the great Shankaracharya describes this. Just one point we will see now, that how the self, it is said that the self becomes its own light in the dreams, as we have seen. So that passage we will see. So the thing is, the self experiences those three states which are contradicted by each other. As Swami Satprakashananda beautifully puts it, while sleeping comfortably and safely on a luxurious bed in his royal mansion, a prince may dream that he is being chased by a tiger in the wilderness and running for his life. An affectionate mother sleeping with a beloved child in her arms may know herself in a dream to be a student playing tennis with her friends. So the dream experience is purely subjective. The ideas of time, space, and causality are complete imaginations. The objects of the dream are the creations of the dreamer's mind. They have no real existence at all. Because they don't exist when we awake. If they had any real existence, they would be still there when we are awake. This table is there when I go to sleep. When I awake, it is still there. So compared to the dream state, the objects seen in the dream state, this table is more real. If this is contradicted by another state, when even the table disappears, we will know that the table was also not real. So regarding the process of dreaming, a very important thing is said, that the self itself becomes the detached light. Atra ayam purusha swayam jyotir bhavati. It itself becomes the light. So what is happening? In the Upanishads it is said, in the dream state the self takes away a little of the impressions of this whole world, means impressions of the waking state. It takes away a little of the impression, so to say. Then what does it do? It puts the body aside. Body means this gross body. It puts it aside means the body goes to sleep. Then what does the self do? What does the mind do? It itself creates a dream body. In dream I am going, eating, sleeping. Where is this dream body? It is a creation in the mind only. Revealing his own lustre by its own light. This is how beautifully the Upanishads put it. Revealing his own lustre by his own light. In this state, the man himself becomes the light. Swayam nirmaya, creating himself. Swena bhasa, with its own light. Swena jyotisha, praswapiti, it dreams. Atra ayam purusha swayam jyotir bhavati. Here the self becomes its own light. So he takes away a little of this world, means the world he experiences in the waking state. He takes a little of the world, so to say. He detaches a portion of the world. Means what? In the dream, he is tinged by the waking experiences. Then he puts the body aside. He kills the body, as it were, for the time being. For the time being, the body is just inert, makes it unconscious, so to say, and becomes its own light. So in the waking state, the sun and the other deities help the eye, etc. We say that there is a Adhishtatri Devata of all the organs. There is a deity behind all the organs. Anyway, that is a different thing. So in the waking state, all these are active. The sun is there, moon is there, our bulbs are there, all these things are there. And the body is also functioning. The body functions because the self experiences the results of its merits and demerits. But in dreams, everything comes to a stop. Here, the only light present is the light of the self. And the only body which is present is that which is created by the mind. That is the thing. So the dream body, the body which is we are experiencing dream, that also is a consequence of our past actions. So it is said that we are creating that body. The self reveals itself in its own lustre, consisting in the perception of sense objects. In dreams also we perceive sense objects. I may be eating something very nice in dream. So what is happening? The mind itself is being modified in the forms of these diverse objects. These modifications of the mind, they are converted, they are transformed into these objects and are spoken of as being themselves of the nature of lustre in that state. This is what Shankaracharya says. He says next, with this, his own lustre as object, and revealing all this by his own light. By his own light means as the detached subject or witness, the self dreams, creates the whole world in which he becomes the subject as well as the object. So in this state, at this time, the self itself becomes the detached light. Why detached? Because it is free from the contact of the elements and their derivatives, external as well as internal. It becomes free from all that, enters into its own world, which it itself has created, where there is only one light. There is no sun, no moon. There is only one light. The light of the eternal witness, which is the self. So, all these sports we see in a dream. We are doing this, we are doing that, we are going here, we are going there. So, Shankaracharya says, in conclusion, I would like to quote, there is this passage in the Upanishads which he explains. The passage is, Aramam asya pashyanti na tam pashyanti kaschana. Aramam pashyanti means everybody sees his sports. All these things are happening. We all see that. Tam na pashyati kaschana. Nobody sees that self. We are seeing the Leela. Shri Ramakrishna says everybody is interested only in seeing the Leela of God. Nobody is interested in seeing God. So what are these sports? Gramam nagaram annadyam iti vasana nirmitam. Gramam, villages, nagaram, cities, annadyam. All these idli dosa what we are eating. Ityadi, all these things. Vasana nirmitam. All these are creations of our desires in dreams. You want to eat something, we cannot eat actually, so we are eating that in dream. So everybody sees that, all these sports. Nobody sees the self, which is the cause of all these sports. Na tam pashyati. Then he says, again, to re-emphasize, he says, tam na pashyati. Nobody sees him. Because we don't see the Atman, all the suffering. Kashtam bho vartate. So much, Shankaracharya says, Kashtam bho vartate. That is why there is so much suffering. Why? Atyanta viviktam, which is completely different from all these things, body, organs, objects. Drishti gochara pannamiti api, which is directly perceived. The self is directly perceived actually. All the objects which you are seeing, We are seeing through the self. So atyanta viviktam, it is completely separate from all this world, object, subject, etc. Drishti gochara pannamapi, it is directly in front of us. Aho bhagya heenata lokasya. How unfortunate we are. Saubhagya durbhagya. Saubhagya good fortune, durbhagya bad fortune. Bhagya heenata. So Shankaracharya says with great compassion, Aho bhagya heenata lokasya. Yat shakya darshanam api atmanam na pashyati. Shakya darshanam, if we want, we can see that. But we see everything but that. Aho kashtam bho, aho bhagya heenita lokasya. How unfortunate we are that we not only don't see that, but we don't want to see that. We are quite happy. Eat ice creams, attend birthday parties. So this is how Shankaracharya says, this is how the Upanishads sympathizes with humankind. That what a pity that although the self is totally distinct from the body and organs and is present before our very eyes, we are unfortunate enough not to see it. That is the thing. So, let us end here. We have seen in a lot of detail many factors. Just to, before ending, I will share the points so it will become clear. Many important things, very important things have been discussed. So, just a summary. So, here you can see one by one all the points. First of all, we should remember the self in reality neither dreams nor is awake. Only one who is dreaming can be awake, only one who is awake can be dreaming. So, nothing happens to the self. Its wakefulness and dream and deep sleep are caused only by its association with the mind. Once the self is free from all that, it is beyond everything. This is the first point. So what happens in dream? The self becomes conditioned by the vrittis of the mind, which are called the mental impressions. And these impressions turn into dream objects. Third point, in the dream state, the mind withdraws itself into itself, all the organs, but the prana continues to function. Once the prana leaves the body, we are dead. That is why what is called, actually death, what is called in Indian languages, prana tyaga, that is the death. When the prana goes, you are finished. Means you are never finished, the body is gone. Then the fourth point, it is primarily through the agency of the mind that the self experiences the dream objects because the organs are withdrawn. So dream objects are but transformations of mental impressions. Now the fifth point, these are experiences of impressions corresponding to things previously perceived. You should remember, these dream experiences correspond to things previously perceived and they are revived by our desires. They are again coming to life. So in it means in dream, we become the experiencer as well as what is experienced. That is the greatness. Mahimanam anubhavati. That is the greatness, that is the mahima, that we become everything, the self becomes everything. Now, sixth point differentiates the waking state and the dream state. In the waking state, the body and organs illuminated by the light of the self perform work that later on produces the modifications of the mind representing the impressions of the dream objects. Therefore, it can be said that the impressions of the waking state, being stimulated by our previous actions, appear as the objects which we see in dream. Thus, we are said to create those objects ourselves. And unlike the waking state, the light of the self is perfectly isolated in the dream state, as it is free from the contact of the elements and their derivatives, external and internal. Thus, it is said that in this state, the self becomes Swayam Jyoti. It reveals its own lustre by its own light. Yeah. So a lot of things have been said, and in one hearing it may not be possible to remember it. So afterwards, those who want, it will be there on the YouTube most probably, so you can see again. So let us stop here. Only one discussion is left in the series, that of the dreamless sleep, which is called Sushupti. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna